All right, next up we're talking about Dawn. Just insanity. I hope you guys stay up for this one like we did because it was just pure college football. Controversial, obviously, some penalty calls at the end of the game. I'm sure Utah fans, the athletic director, by the way, is livid over it. You see that he was like accusing the Big 12 of stealing the game away from them.
We're gonna get into that.
We'll get into that.
We're gonna get into that.
But number 9 BYU beating Utah 22-21. Before we get to the highest grade players, I just want to go over. We interviewed Jake Retzloff, the quarterback for BYU, who we'll talk about in just a little bit as well. Dawn, at the end of the interview, and I'm upset that we didn't get this on camera. It's my fault for ending the interview prematurely because I talked about him. I was like, hey, hell of a year you guys are on, man. And he's like, listen, I think there's some divine intervention with our season. He's like, in that UCF game, the whole rockets and all that for UCF, the rocket launching. And he's like, in that game, we scored a touchdown. And right after we scored the touchdown, I looked up at the sky and the rockets started taking off. And I was like, if that doesn't show that there's some divine intervention in our season, I don't know what will. And I said, listen, Jake, every great college football team has got a little magic. You got to be a great team, obviously, but you got to have a little magic as well. BYU had some magic in this game. And honestly, after saying divine intervention, this is the team of destiny, it feels like, for BYU. So unbelievable game for the Cougars, keeping their undefeated season alive. Let's go over their highest graded players, starting off with Chase Roberts, their wide receiver, 75.6 grade. Defensive tackle John Nelson, 74.4 grade. Jacob Robinson, the corner, 72.3. Jack Kelly, the linebacker, 72.2. Blake Mangelson, the edge defender, 71.3. And Jake Retzloff, the 61.3 grade. Going over to Utah with their highest graded players. Karenni Reed, the linebacker, at 76.6. Spencer Fano, the right tackle, 75.7. By the way, Spencer Fano has been unreal this year. So if you haven't checked him out already because he is the right tackle. He's a true sophomore. I think he's the highest graded run blocker in the country right now. He might be a first-round pick in the 2026 NFL draft, so check him out. Elijah Davis, a corner, 72.1. Dorian Singer, wide receiver, 72. Smith Snowden, the corner, at 71.9. And Brandon Rose with a 76.1 grade at quarterback. Dawn, for you, what was that to tell the story in an unbelievable BYU victory?
Okay. At the end of the day, this was a really even game between two rivals in a hell of an environment, right?
Yep.
The one thing, I'm going to actually go back to that penalty to preface this, okay? First of all, I thought it was a good call.
Okay.
That
Utah fans can kill you. It was close. It was very close.
Close?
Yeah.
I thought it was actually in a vacuum. I thought it was the right call. I'm going to tell you why that doesn't, one way or the other, it doesn't matter to me. There's a lot of coaches nowadays that talk about finish the game with the ball in your hands, right? Utah had 3 chances in the last 12 minutes to really kill this game with a lead. BYU just scored 21-19. They didn't get the 2-point conversion. Utah still has a lead, right? They play this tight, hard-nosed football, right? Their last 3 drives with the football, they ran 10 plays. They got 10 yards. They got 1 first down. They were 0 for 3 on third down. There was a big holding penalty on a 3rd and 1 run play that they didn't get either. They didn't even get the first down on that 3rd and 1, but a big holding penalty, and BYU was smart to push them back and stop them on 3rd and 11. Make Brandon Rose beat you on 3rd and 11. They're not going to do that, right? This, to me, is where Utah should be pissed off.
Yeah.
3 chances in the 4th quarter. You put a touchdown on the board? Cool. Honestly, even if you put a field goal on the board and you're up 5, I don't think BYU's scoring another touchdown in this game. I don't think they would have scored another touchdown. The way they were not pass protecting in this game.
No.
Retzloff had to battle through it. I mean, it was rough. They were blitzing him like crazy. The blitzes were getting home. I mean, it was hard for BYU. I won't lie to you. Yes, did they catch the 1 break? Sure. But if you're Utah, the part you should actually be mad about is not finishing the game when you had a chance. 3 different times. How many stops do you want your defense to get? How many? Because they've been getting them all night. They gave up before that last drive. And even then, even after the penalty, BYU had the ball at the 19 with a minute left and no timeouts. And you give up the big play to Chase Roberts and then another out route to Lassiter, and then that's pretty much just it from there. So I think Utah, for me, they lost this game the same way they've lost their other, 4 games, right? They have 5 losses now. They're just not good enough on offense.
Yeah.
Whether it was Cam Rising against Arizona State or the game against Houston where they scored 14 points or this game.
Mekhi Bernard didn't do enough for them either.
This is what they do. Even they scratched their way to 21 points. By the way, they scored all 21 of these points in the first half. They did not.
No, not even that. I'll get into that in a second.
Yeah. I mean, they did not score a point in the second half, and they had 3 drives, especially the last 2 would bother me when it's either milk the clock or score some points, and they didn't get either of those things done. I think Utah lost this game for the same reasons they've lost all their other games. They're just not good enough on offense.
Dawn, Utah scored all 21 points in the second quarter. One quarter, they scored all their points in. So my side of the story is that Utah, in the second quarter, 0.531 EPA per play. Really, really good offensively. In the other 3 quarters combined, negative 0.558 EPA per play. A full point difference in the other 3 quarters. Like I said, all 21 points for Utah were scored in the second quarter. In the second quarter, they averaged 6.8 yards per play. Other 3 quarters, they averaged 3.9 yards per play. Dalton, they averaged 9.9 yards per pass in the second quarter. In all other 3 quarters, 1.8 yards per pass. An 8-yard difference in yards per pass in the other 3 quarters. Brandon Rose, 84.6 passing grade in the second quarter, 54 passing grade in the other 3 quarters. Their inability to do anything in the passing game for 75% of this game was what lost them this game. Their second quarter, you go back and watch it, they were driving on BYU. Whatever they wanted.
They did.
They
got hot. Yeah.
But for some reason, in the other 45 minutes, BYU, they couldn't do anything on the BYU defense in passing wise. So, yeah, that's my side to tell the story is that they just, one quarter, Utah looked really unbeatable, honestly. In the other 3 quarters, BYU defensively shut them down.
Yeah, no, I mean, Utah, their offense got hot. They felt the mojo. They had the home crowd going. Brandon Rose was making plays. He was fired up on the sideline, right? But games are 60 minutes, and you're right, you have to play well for 60 minutes. You play one good quarter of offense.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the only game where we saw that, this week. You just can't you cannot keep expecting your defense. Now, there's another game where one team did expect their defense to do it because they kind of had to, but we'll get there. But you can't expect your defense to do this drive in and drive out and week in and week out. And honestly, we saw Utah's what now, 5-5?
Yeah.
This is why they're 5-5. It's all this stuff we just said about them offensively. BYU, I got to be honest, they just kind of hung in there. They hung in there. They kept making stops when they needed to. They hung in there, and when Retzlaff was given an opportunity, he made it happen. And I'm going to go into something later about close wins and why those still matter, because it's up to come out of one of the toughest road environments in college football with a win like this against a rival. Credit to the Cougars, man.
Utah's 4-5, by the way.
They're 4-5.
4-5 with games against Colorado, Iowa State, and UCF. So they got to win 2 of those last 3 games to make a bowl game. I don't know if they're going to do that. That's tough for them right now, honest. But obviously, they play great against BYU. Obviously, BYU is the best team in the Big 12 right now, looks like at least. They could feasibly beat anyone in the Big 12 if they play like that. But they got to finish games, like you said. Dalton, for you, most impressive part of this BYU victory?
I'm actually going to credit Utah here and Morgan Scalley, their defensive coordinator. We've talked about Jake Retzlaff being so successful against a 4-man rush, a standard rush. Well, he didn't let him have it. He blitzed nearly 53% of Retzlaff's dropbacks. He got home on 42% pressure rate there. You mentioned Corinne Reed, 5 pressures and a sack. Lander Barton had 3 pressures as a linebacker. Van Fillinger off the edge with 5 pressures and a sack. This to me, it felt like there were times in this game it felt like Jake Retzlaff was under pressure every single drop back. And again, he kept battling, and props to him at the very end for fighting through. But Utah, with the blitz plan and everything they came up with on defense in their front 7, they bothered BYU's offense as much as they possibly could. And just look, I think Utah's offense let them down. Obviously, the penalty is a mistake, and the couple of big plays after that after that penalty were mistakes. But I'll credit Morgan Scalley and the defense. This was about as good an effort as Utah's defense could have put up.
Yeah, I want to shout out the BYU corners in this game. Mark Collins, 2 catches allowed on 6 targets for 19 yards. He had 2 forced incompletions as well, so as many forced incompletions as catches allowed. Jacob Robinson, 0 catches allowed on 1 target with an interception as well. In total, BYU's corners allowed 3 catches on 9 targets for 33 yards and a 5.6 passer rating allowed. They averaged 5.6 passer rating allowed. BYU's corners gave up in this game. Utah, like we mentioned before, time and time again, they could not get anything going in the passing game. It's been a theme for them all year. And listen, a big part of that is because their inability to push the ball downfield with their correct situation, but also a big part of it was BYU's corners really stepping up and playing well in this game. So I want to shout out BYU corners for playing really well in this victory for the Cougars as well.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.